Who is this young lady, you might ask? Well, her name is Rihanna Rudd, and she's a teenage girl who got involved with terrorists. But what you also should know is one, she comes from a single mother household, and two, her single mother introduced a criminal element into her life. That's important, right? Now, this BBC article says Rihanna Rudd, MI5, had evidence teen terror suspect was exploited. Now, I have an issue with that title, you see, because she's a teenager. Of course, she was exploited. So why do they need evidence of it, right? Because if you see anything with the words grooming, exploitation, especially sexual exploitation or coercion, these are terms used to let women off the hook. So this young lady isn't being protected as the child she is. She's being protected as a female. That's what pisses me off so much. That's the issue I have with this. That's why she's not immediately considered exploited. And I'll prove it too. Further down the article, it says Rhiannon is part of a trend of growing numbers of children, often involved in online right-wing extremism, being investigated by MI5 and police. Convictions of the past 2 years include Cornish boy who led his online terror cell at age 14, and a boy, Darlington, arrested at age 13. 13, he's even younger than she is. Notice they're getting arrested, right, and convicted. Where if you look up here, it says the prosecutor of Rihanna Rudd was later dropped after the Home Office concluded she was a victim of exploitation. So again, these youngsters who are boys, they're thrown behind bars. If you're a young girl, you're let off the hook. Again, not because you're a child, because you're a girl. And we'll get into her mother's involvement as well, right? Now it says at age 14, Rhiannon Rudd became absorbed by right-wing extremism. Her mother, Emily Carter, remembers her as a lovely girl who adored horses, but then she began to express racist and anti-Semitic belief, Miss Carter says. If you don't have blonde hair and blue eyes, Aryan, as they say, she didn't want to know you. You were an inferior race. You shouldn't have been alive, her mother recalls. Notice her mother talks like she has nothing to do with anything like of this, right? Now, also, here's something you should know. Rhiannon had difficulty building relationships and struggled in life, says Miss Carter. She was also diagnosed as autistic. Well, there's no reason to say also. Since she was autistic, that's why she had difficulty building relationships. So she has this vacuum of friends. She couldn't make girlfriends. So that's a big vacuum in her life. But here's the other vacuum, and that's the vacuum at home. Rihanna had run away from home in the past, and there was social service involvement with the family. So in other words, she doesn't want to be with her mother either. So her home life is a vacuum. Her mother acknowledges she made mistakes, but always tried to do her best. Notice how the BBC doesn't get into the nitty-gritty of what her mistakes were, right? They're whitewashing her involvement in all this. I suspect at best she was neglecting her daughter, and at worst, she was probably abusing her, right? So, of course, since the mother is completely blameless, as the society wants, bring in the men that they will blame, even though these guys are guilty, right? But this guy, for some time, Rihanna had been talking to older people online, including American Christopher Cook, that's this guy here, who promoted a terrorist form of neo-Nazism and formed a combat cell to carry out attacks. But this is the other thing. Evidence shows the then partner of Rihanna's mother also had an influence. Ms. Carter says this was kept from her. Notice she's trying to keep herself clean of this, right? The partner, American Dax Mullenberg, had been part of a white supremacist prison gang in the US. He met Rihanna's mother via pen pal system for prisoners. There he is. Here's the other guy. They get to be the bad guy. But the point is, she met him through a pen pal system for prisoners. So her mother knew this guy was a criminal. So she could have gotten together with an upstanding citizen, but she bypassed those guys for the thug. She's attracted to the criminal thug. Right. And she introduced this guy to her daughter, because you know why? This woman down here cares about herself, not her daughter. She is the source, the wellspring of all this girl's problems. You know. Now, this is important too. Before Rihanna was arrested, Maliburn's relationship with her mother had broken down, and he returned to the US. Right. So she and her mother are in the UK. This guy's in America. He's a continent away. Remember that when they start using terms like coercion. Remember, coercion is a way to get grown women, let alone children, off the hook. So again, this has nothing to do with the fact that Rhiannon is a child. It's because she's a female. Now, and if you don't believe me, take a look down here later in this article. Debates about trafficking and exploitation are also taking place in immigration cases concerning young women, not children, women, appealing the removal of their British citizenship after they went to Syria to join the Islamic State group. That's right. These women, young women, were bypassing the men in their country to go with men they saw as dangerous and exciting. Just like Rihanna's mother, right? And so what do? They use, for one thing, if they're getting up and leaving on their own, it's not trafficking. And they're not being exploited. These women are doing what they want to do. Period. So that's what ticks me off so much about this. Now, just to bolster further what I've been saying, Rihanna spent over 6 months on bail waiting for a charging decision. Her mother says this period led to a decline in her health, mental health, with instances of self-harm, running away, and attempted suicide, right? Now, in April 2021, more than 6 months after the arrest, she was charged with 6 terrorism offenses for having earlier possessed instructions for making explosives and weapons. Prosecutors alleged one set of instructions were connected to a potential planned attack. Days after she was charged, when newly appointed defense lawyers intervened, Derbyshire Council referred Rihanna to the Home Office as a possible victim of exploitation. Notice, as a child, she's not possible. Only as a girl, right? It took a further 7 months for the decision to be made. When it came, the Home Office concluded she had been trafficked and exploited. In late December 2021, the prosecution was halted. See how this is a child that they were going to throw behind bars. But they used tactics used to get grown women off to rescue her. And those little boys don't have that option. do they? Right? So there's two things I'm pointing out about this video. One, of course, is that the single mother is really the wellspring of this girl's problems, and that she does not gain any blame for this whatsoever. Right? And two, that her being rescued from the situation of getting jailed was due to her sex and not the fact that she was a child, an autistic child who needed protection. I think I might add a third one was the fact that she was still talking to these guys online, meaning this girl wanted a father figure in her life. She didn't like her mother. Come on. That's why she ran away from home. By the way, this girl, it didn't matter. She ended up taking her own life anyway. Because let's face it, she had nothing to look forward to. She got involved with these extremists because she had no school life and she had no home life. Right. Anyway, that's what I have to say about this video. Goodbye, everyone.